Underdog.
The underdog.
Underdog.
An underdog is.
I underdog.
I'm here to fight for underdogs everywhere. Good, evil. I reject them both.
But why the underdog? Whether it's a human against a god, or just simply a character facing what we thought would be his reaper, it's always a complete flow of emotion when all the odds are overcome by the weak, the underrated, the underdog. Few moments can excite us more than seeing that individual nobody would have betted a penny on, working himself through everything, punching down what we saw as unsurpassable walls, surprising everyone and getting the hard-earned victory. The world as we know it today originated in the 19th century, around 1859. The cruel background that brought to its creation was, as the name suggests, dogfighting. Of course I can't show explicit image and I'm sure you know why, so please try to use your imagination for what is possible. During the act, the two challengers weren't put in the pit with the same possibility to win. One was positioned on the higher ground, while the other, which was supposed to be dominated, found itself under, at the bottom, therefore the creation of the term that we got so used of. Of course it went through a long time of aging, gaining its typical metaphoric sense. Then it spread outside the human activity, reaching the world of politics. First, it was the newspaper describing such a struggle, and later on it got also caught in sport and by our topic, media and fiction. Even though the technical term wasn't created so long ago, its concept has been around for ages. Above all, some of the most obsessed with narrating stories of heroes winning over brute strength with the use of resilience and cleverness are the Greeks. This is mostly due to their stories being of a pedagogical nature. The need of teaching new generation the core value of the ideal man generated great stories like the Odyssey, where we see Odysseus surviving wars and God's wrath with his brilliant strategies, or Prometheus, a single titan facing Zeus, the king of gods, just to help humanity, facing the consequence but never regretting the act, representing a true example of underdog who bears as weapon his moral resilience. Or again, Zeus, who's obliged to face the Minotaur and, if that's not enough, he has to do it with the weight of King Minos' oppressive rules, but through his intelligence and preparation, he still managed to come out on top. All of these examples serve as well when it comes to identify the idea of an underdog. However, this video still lacks of its literal meaning, which is by definition a person, character, or group who's expected to fail. Due to certain disadvantages, such as lack of power or skill, is predicted to lose, but still it fights, and somehow, through certain conditions, methods, or simply hard work, manage to win. Or at least that's what I'd wish to say. However, this is not always the case. They can also lose. Sometimes, even creators decide to feature this harsh truth in their work, and I can say that when done right, this can reach absurd peaks, teaching us needed lessons. Well, I think we have exhaustively refined the margin of our topic. However, the goal of this video wasn't defining a word. I aim to dig deeper in the matter, and instead of talking about the term directly, I like to understand this. Why are we humans so supportive toward underdogs? I mean, is it just that we think they're cool? Or maybe we compare them to us cause they feel relatable? Or maybe, is it because of a more selfish reason found deep in the unconscious region of our brain? Well, let's find out. Truly, I tell you, it's hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. What I just quoted was a famous verse from the Bible, Matthew chapter 19. This holy book was written ages ago, yet still, the sense of justice that conditions our day-to-day life is already present. The sympathy for the weak and the aversion for the limitless strong had and has today a strong grip on our mind. In a certain sense, it's basically automatic. As humans, together with some primates, carry what we will call a built-in sensitivity to unequal treatment. A frontier study tried to prove this fairness instinct, or in a more psychological manner, the inequity aversion, by collecting thought from various participants of the study. These were presented with an imminent sports competition, alongside the background of the two teams that were about to challenge each other. They were shown the economic and financial difference, the expectation on who would win, and many other aspects that were needed to create a situation of inequity between the challenger, creating a clear underdog between the two. As you can expect, this resulted in many expressing their support toward that team. What they thought was that since the situation is already against it, the least they could do was to take side with the weaker one. This consequence is very obviously correlated with the fairness bias we talked about. It's very unpleasant for us to view a situation where both parties don't have similar chance at winning. This strange sensation automatically translates in a desire to surf against all odds and root for the less favored individual. For some psychological reason, we hate when the situation is thrown to one side of the competition, which sounds really funny since this is how it works in real life 99% of the time. As of now, it's a worldwide tradition to teach in school or just simply to tell kids at a young age many different stories from legendary writers. Just like the Greek, we kept with us the pedagogical function in the books that we read to the youngs. Many of these don't have a specific authors but instead owned by many different writers who share their version. And exactly with one of these books, I want to explain another phase of why we are so attached to the underdog figure. Let me ask you, when learning about Cinderella, did you put yourself in her sister's shoes, or did you first sympathize with the mistreated, oppressed, but virtuous heroine? Of course, if you're not a monster, you choose the second option. Insecurities apart, we all portray a decent confidence about ourselves when it comes to believe that we are good people. Unless you're daily eaten by remorse, at least. We also believe that we are the unlucky one. We feel like the world is against us and all of our achievements are cause of sweaty hard work. To put it in the simple word, we believe ourselves as the underdog of our life. Even though we know there's people in worse situations, we still think it the same. And this is why it's so easy to immerse in this type of characters, because they just feel very relatable to us. On the contrary of Cinderella, we don't have an easy time trying to see the situation from her petty sister point of view. Just simply because, as I already said, we don't believe that we have anything to share with them. We will always put ourselves in the position of the weak, and hope for him to win through hard work and endurance, especially since deep down, that's what we wish for ourselves too. So we hope for them to become that fuel to motivate us into following their path. Now, if my mind didn't come up with this third point, the video will be over by now. To be honest, I don't know whether I'm the first to think about it or not, but probably the second. The point I want to make is a bit more obscure and leans deeply on the highly debated current of thought that the human is evil, and think that our core is made up of selfishness, adding that basically everything we do is guided by a personal gain. Even being kind is seen as something that is made up, either to please ourselves or to receive something back. What does this have to do with supporting underdog? While empathy and fairness often explain why we root for the underdog, I wonder if there's also a more primal self-interest motive at play. Supporting the weak may not be just pure altruism, it can be a subtle form of self-preservation. From an evolutionary perspective, early humans survived best in balanced groups, where no single member dominated the rest. If the powerful stay unchecked, others risk exploitation. By siding with the underdog, we maintain a safer, more equal environment, one where we are less likely to become victims. Psychologically, it's a kind of risk management. We prefer seeing the strong defeated because it means we won't have to fight them ourselves. When the underdog wins, the threat is neutralized, and we gain a sense of relief and security without a personal cost. It's an act of vicarious victory. Their triumph feels like our own protection. This instinct hides beneath moral language, fairness, justice, empathy, but its roots are pragmatic. Rooting for the underdog is not just a statement of compassion, quiet survival strategy, a way for the powerless to imagine safety in a world built on power. Well, even though I found this theory pretty interesting, it's still a made up theory by a bum like me. And again, I am surely not the first to think about it too. The problem with this hypothesis is that even if this is true, why does it apply to fictional world? I mean, sure, we do immerse in those worlds, and therefore we bring with us our way of thinking. However, is it possible that our brain isn't capable of distinguishing reality from entertainment show? Well, you give it a thought, and please leave it in the comment, cause I'm really engaged with this. In the end, are we now able to answer the question, why the underdog? So what's surely part of the cause is our empathy. Being this good to immerse ourselves in other people's situation doesn't let us avoid feel the struggle of this character. Often fiction is like a rainbow and sunshine world. Therefore, when instead we get the plain reality like we live it every day, we get attached to it and start to recognize our own pain in those figures, inevitably translating focusing our support on them. Now that I think about it, the fairness bias is kinda similar to the fact that we may be selfish. But anyway, what's sure is that we wish for fair situation for everyone, or at least when it comes to fiction. And that surely is another piece of the puzzle that explains why we love underdog. Probably just like you think of yourself, I've always been a kid that had struggle, asking the sky why is everything going to my way to obstacle me, but yet I'm here, still flawed but better. Still wondering why is it hard for me, yet continuing on the road, no matter how harsh it looks. Still thinking the next wall is gonna be unsurpassable and that it's gonna be the last one for me, and yet I'm still gonna break it down. Why? Because if this character has ever taught me something in my life, is that you still own to yourself the duty to fight, and you gotta do it because that's what you did last time, and it's gonna be what you're gonna do this time, and the next one as well. More importantly, it taught me to cheer for myself, to support for myself, to root for myself. So this is why. For me, this is why the underdog.